Running our own business isn't easy, and it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And on Scale Up Radio, we aim to help make things just that little bit easier by interviewing guests who have been where you are now, regardless of where you are on the scale-up journey, and maybe facing some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked well for them, as well as what didn't, of course. And we've also combined many of these lessons into a practical scale-up handbook called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And there's details of this at the end of the episode. So welcome to Scale Up Radio.
Hello, Ben Parker. Welcome to Scale Up Radio. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, Granger. Thanks very much. So I'm Ben Parker of Parker Financial Advice. We're an independent financial advice firm based in Cheltenham. And we just a very kind of whistle-stop tour of us. We offer all things financial advice, but around retirement planning, estate planning, investments, protection, etc.
So how long have you been going?
Yeah, so the business is relatively young in the grand scheme of things. So we've probably been registered about 3 years now. I've been running for a couple of years. It was the background on that is it's three brothers actually. So it's Parker Financial Advice, but it's John, Ben, and Rob Parker. You've got myself and John are the advisors. John's what you call the kind of principal or senior advisor in the firm, and he's got a big financial services background. So he's been in that all of his career, and he's also been a lot in kind of pensions tech and financial services technology. So the financial advice arm was a kind of very complemented his other business because he's also a director of another firm. So he kind of came to me probably about 3 years ago now, saying he wanted to set up a financial advice firm in Cheltenham, and would I like to join it? And I don't know. He got me. I don't know. I like to call it a kind of midlife crisis. I don't know whether it was or not, but I was about then I was turning 40. I'd been in the energy industry for 20 years, and it was. I was kind of, when you start to think, what's the next 20 years going to involve? I could quite fancy a different challenge. And he came to me at a good time. He said, do you fancy setting this business together? And I really like the idea of it. So, about 3 years, we put the wheels in motion to get Parker Financial Advice up and running. And then since then, our other brother, Rob, joined the firm. He's not an advisor. He manages a lot of our kind of technology and operations and research. He's an economist by trade, kind of used to work in the cabinet office. So he does a lot more of the clever stuff in the background. So it's the three of us.
Three brothers, is that it? Any other employees at the moment?
That's it. And that is the plan. That our business model is definitely around outsourcing as much as we can. So the kind of financial advice model, or our model of it, is we outsource kind of admin, we outsource power planning, we outsource a lot of even the social media stuff. So never say never. We've got to be flexible to how things change. But the plan is that we would never need to kind of directly employ people unless things go particularly well or particularly badly, I suppose. But that's us at the moment, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great business model. I meet a number of people that do exactly that, and they grow to multi millions in terms of turnover before they then go, you know what, we'll bring some of that in house and stop paying all these people. But it's a very successful model, and it does work. So, tell us about your clients. You told the estate planning, etc. Who typically are your clients? Why do they come knocking on your door?
Yeah. So a lot of our work is around retirement planning. So we do a lot of work with pensions. So there's a real mix. So we have a lot of people that, for example, have had a number of jobs throughout their career. So they're pulling along with a big kind of tail of pensions from different providers. Yeah. So we do a lot of work in kind of making sense of all that. A lot of the retirement planning as well is just understanding what someone's retirement look like, because pension companies make it much more complicated than it needs to be. So it's very difficult for people to really understand what is a retirement plan for them. What does it look like for them retiring? So a lot of that's people in their kind of 30s and 40s, let's say, who are looking to build up their pensions and just understand when they might be retiring. And then we also have clients that are much more in the 50s and 60s, so kind of much closer to retirement, so starting to get their kind of affairs in order for what the retirement would be and what kind of what their financial situation looks like. And then again, you have, say, older clients now, 60s and 70s, who are looking at estate planning. So do they have inheritance tax liabilities? What is it going to look like for passing kind of wealth onto their beneficiaries? So it's a kind of wide ranging, really, from people starting to grow their wealth or understand their wealth, what that plan looks like, to then people looking to have built that up. How am I going to now use that wealth in my retirement?
Yeah. Okay. And, let's say most people in their 30s are probably not thinking about pensions. Most people in their 40s and 50s are probably going, oh, have I got enough? So how do people come knocking on your door? How do you find them that they need to do these things?
Well, this is a really interesting point around financial advice, because there's no huge time pressure on it, if you see what I mean. Like, if someone's having to renew a mortgage, for example, there's a date that mortgage needs renewing, you have to do it. Whereas retirement planning, I would guess or estimate that most people think, I need to get that in order, I need to understand it, but it's well down their kind of priority list. So a lot of it is, I think it tends to be people, they think about it and go, oh, I need to do that. And they don't. And then they have some sort of reminder and go, yes, I was meant to do that thing. And then eventually they get, right, I need to get these in order. And that's when they kind of hear from me or see me, or it's a lot of people I've worked with in the past suddenly go, actually, I need to get that sorted. I know Ben, I kind of trust him. I'll get him to do it. So it's much more people getting in touch at their own time. So just making sure I'm available, making sure they're seeing me kind of socially or networking or wherever it might be, that when it's at the right time for them, I can help them.
Yeah, I can see that. It's more about your client going, yeah, I need to fix that, or I need to take that forwards, and realizing that, they've met you at some point and go, okay, I'll reach out to Ben and ask them. So we understand your business model, we understand your type of clients, but what makes you different? What do you strive to be best at then as a business?
Yeah, so I might go on a bit of a tangent here, but bear with me. So when we were setting the business up and John came and said, look, should we do this? So we did our research into it, and there's just a lot, there's evidence out there that there is a financial advice gap. So we kind of showed there is a gap in the market for this, or the advisor population is aging, and there is a gap for new advisors to come in. And so then we thought, okay, so the kind of empirical evidence is there's a gap. And then it was our own experience. And this is where I'll answer the question. It was what is our own experience of financial advice? And I'd worked in the energy industry for 20 years, and I had good jobs, but I wasn't wealthy by any kind of stretch of the imagination, but I had a decent job and I had a good pension and some disposable income. And we'd found that in that space, our experience of financial advice hadn't been the best, or could have been better. It felt much more of a product pushing exercise. So when you'd meet people and they wouldn't listen to what you had to say, and then they would just try and sell you a product at the end of it. So that's where we thought a lot of what we do and a lot of what I talk about is as being a kind of Cheltenham-based or Gloucestershire-based firm, is that I've lived in Cheltenham pretty much all of my life, so I lived 42 years of it. I plan to be in Cheltenham for the rest of it. I'm going to be around, so it's got to be a lot of it based on credibility and trust, because it's financial advice, right? So it's everyone's money, so they're not. And one of the reasons I touched on before around how people get introduced to me, it's very unlikely, I would argue, that people are going to see me as a one-off and go, oh, you're a financial advisor, great, here's all my money. It has to be more of a, oh, I know him, or I've known him for a few months now, or these people know him, or I used to work with him, or this kind of thing. That's where this kind of trust is built. They come and talk to me. So, sorry, Granger, that's a very, very long answer, but it's more the difference. The difference for us is much more that we are personable. We kind of understand people. I also like to think I've kind of walked the walk to an extent. I've had the jobs, I've had the income from that. So I've had the need for financial advice, and it's much more is we talk about mass affluence. So it's the high net worth people. So the people with loads of money, they're covered. There's plenty of advisors for those. It's much more people that have good jobs, they have some savings, they want to know what a retirement plan is. It's making that accessible, or making financial advice accessible to them, making it kind of professional and trustworthy and achievable, really.
Yes. So you've described that really around, you've got that long-term knowledge within the community that you're serving. You've got that listening capability because you have not felt that in the past from your experience, and you're focusing on building that trust with those upper affluent people that have disposable income to do this, but like yourself, never really given the good advice of what you could do and how you would do that in the past. So that's how you focus on them. Okay, yeah, I can definitely see that and how they do, and I like that long-term knowledge of the marketplace because you've lived and worked in Cheltenham, Gloucestershire all your life. So that's definitely a local trust element that you'll build up. So financial advisory, what's the sort of marketplace like? What's its competition market? Is it?
So I break it down into 3 areas really. So within the financial advice world, you've got kind of independent financial advice. So people like us who could use the whole of market. So if we are picking a product or investment for our clients, we look at everybody out there and pick them. Or there's the alternatives like the let's the St. James's Place to be open kind of route, whereas they're a very big firm, but they use their products. So you go to an SJP advisor, you will get an SJP product. So that's the kind of distinction there, really. But then outside of that, with financial advice, you have the more like if it's pension consolidation, for example, you have the pension bees or the companies out there. You see that you could try and consolidate your pensions yourself. So it's trying to get that middle ground between people don't want to do it themselves. They don't want it to be kind of restricted with the access to the market, and they prefer that kind of independent whole of market approach.
And in that marketplace, you saw an opportunity when you set up the business. So I guess there's not a lot of financial advisors in that space within your target area, or did you just see something else that there was an opportunity there?
Yeah, I find this fascinating. Well, I find it fascinating. You'll be the judge whether it is or not. So it's well documented. There's the gap in advisors. So not enough advisors for people needing advice, you would say. However, when I do a lot of networking events, as you do, Granger, and I go to a lot of events like this, and there's loads of advisors. So it's very open that there's not many of us, but we all seem to be at the same events. So it's so it is out there, but I think there's more advice needed than there are advisors. That's the gap we saw, and then it's just about how we. And it's not. It also doesn't feel like intense competition between financial advisors. I generally think the majority of us, I can't speak for all of the financial advice community, but the majority ones I've spoken to, we're all just more in the market of we want people getting financial advice. It's important that people are advised on this. And if it's not me, speak to somebody else, but it's important you get advice first. And then hopefully we use us, not somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So we now sort of understand the marketplace bit. So let's just talk about the business and the growth and the development of it. So your brother came knocking on the door and said, "How about this?" So take us through the journey over the last 3 years. What's gone well? What's not gone so well?
Yeah. So to backtrack to the kind of start of it. So I was, like I said, I was working in the energy industry, and I've done various roles then, from even like customer services to like within trading functions, origination, to then managing sales teams. So that's how I kind of ended up. So the start of the business was me exiting the energy industry. So I was working for a large energy supplier then that were going through a round of redundancies essentially. So it was a perfect storm, however way you look at it, that John had come to me with this idea. And then not very long after that, the company I was at said, right, we're getting rid of 500 people. Does anyone want to put their hand up? So I was like, okay, it's kind of I'm not going to have a better opportunity. If I want to do something different, this is the way to do it. So the reason I bring this up is it kind of had, there's about 14 months between that conversation happening at my old firm to them letting me go. They had a lot of work they wanted me to do, which is great. So it was more about keeping the business on the back burner until I'd exited that firm. And then we could get the business set up. We got it all registered. Then we did a kind of lot of work around business planning and what our kind of marketing strategy would be, sales strategy, etc., these kind of things. And then we kind of took the leap of launching it. I kind of think of it a few steps. So we'd done our research that I've mentioned before. We did our research that we think there's a gap there. And then we thought, well, actually, we've got kind of between us as brothers kind of very complementary skills in order to make a business run. And then it's like, can we get our first customer? Which we did, and we did that relatively quickly and successfully. And then we're like, well, actually, there's still no real red flags to this. And then it's like, right, kind of it's almost kind of textbook business stuff. Can you get your second one? Which we did. And then we thought, okay, this is still no red flags. It all seems to be going quite well. And then we've kind of picked up more and more and more customers. And what we found was the challenge for us was really around internal processes. So, and that came to a head, I would say, because we started off life as what's called a trading style of another advice firm, and that kind of got us up and running. And then because we'd grown quite quickly, quicker than we thought we would do it, we took the move to become what's called an authorized representative, or an AR of a network. So that means I've kind of authorized in our own right with the FCA, the body that governs financial advice. So we made that step, and then we changed called network provider. I'm going to make a point here, Granger, bear with me. So what that meant was when we changed network provider, we got new systems, we had new processes. Right. And our major concern at the time was, how can we keep finding and servicing customers while we're making this transition? And what we would have done differently in hindsight was we should have spent a lot more time nailing down what those new processes are and those systems are first, and then concentrate back on the customer acquisition journey. Because we almost ground to a halt for 2-3 months while we kept bumping into these process issues that we'd have to sort out, rather than just going, okay, we need to get our processes much more streamlined and understood, and checks and balances in place, and then start again, which we did. So we did that, but I think we could have done that a lot quicker in hindsight.
Yeah. The change management in any business is always interesting and exciting, but when you're trying to do everything else in a small business and keep the lights on and make everything happen, and then try and throw a significant amount of change in terms of internal processes, hats off to you guys, that eventually you said, right, let's stop, fix, get running again. To do that. So yeah, I can feel your pain on that one. I haven't been through it myself, but I can feel that one. I can appreciate that, definitely. So well, you've made these changes. Things are now happening again in terms of what you're working through. So I just want to go back to the beginning. You talked about business planning, marketing strategy, identifying the skill sets between you. What key thing do you think that gave you advantage for? Because I don't think a lot of businesses do that properly at the start normally. It's something they pick up as they go along, because it's usually, I've got an idea, let's go to marketplace. People are going to love me. What do you think that brought to you as a business? Because I don't normally hear those type of words right at the start.
Yeah, good question. I think the thing off the top of my head the last kind of, from my perspective, the last 10 years of my career in the energy industry have been in kind of sales and account management and business development. So I've very much been in that world for a long time, of planning out what are your various strategies in that area, what are your customer retention strategies, how do you engage with the market, all of those things that are important for any business, right, to kind of get your word out there and get your trust with your clients and customers. So I was already in that world. So that was where my headspace was. So when we come into this one, we go, okay, how are we going to manage our clients? How are we going to grow our business? What's our messaging? All these kind of things. John, my brother, he's the director of the company anyway. So he's very much been in the kind of business planning and reporting and management, information reporting, these kind of things. So like what the finances look like, what do the marketing plans look like, what do the operational plans look like, all of these kind of things. And then Rob, our third brother, who does the kind of lot of the operations bit, from the economist kind of mindset, he'd already been, well, what's the marketplace saying? What kind of the research tools we need? What is the tech that we can make our company function better? Because actually my kind of rambling is just reminding me of something. One of the differences we wanted to make around IFA is use tech a lot better. So a lot more stuff can be done online, a lot more stuff can be done within kind of technology providers. And that was one of the things we looked for when we made this change to be a authorized representative, was what network is out there that kind of best uses the tech industry. Because one is that makes our business model work, because like I said, we don't want to employ too many people. And mainly a lot of people, that's how they want to operate these days. So call it virtual experience, so much more stuff online. We still face to face. And I went off point there, Granger. I'm trying to think, what was the original question?
So the question was around the business planning level that you did up front. Why do you think that's how, other businesses don't do that level of planning? I can tell you now, why do you think that brought you that success, or has it brought you that success? What do you think about, what it's done for you, which normal businesses probably don't do for a few years?
Yeah. And I take it back to, I'm not sure this is a direct answer to the question, but tell me if it's not. But I do remember kind of vividly in a previous life in the energy industry when I went through some sales training, and then people kind of sat me down and go, well, what's your strategy? What do you do? And I kind of talked through it, and they said, well, show me your plan. I was like, what do you mean? So, and they go, well, what do you work to? I said, well, this is kind of what I do. So, well, how do you manage your workflows and all these things? Well, because I like to get emails and I keep notes and stuff. So, how do you refer back to how well it's going? So it's like, well, I don't know. And there's a real eye opener for me that you need to be working to some sort of plan. One is just so what you refer back to, because there's an infinite amount of work that's available to be done. And it's how can you refer back to what you're doing? Is what you're doing making your business go better? Is what you're doing referring to that original plan where you sat down and said, this is what we're going to do? And it might not do, but then you can at least have a kind of practical discussion around why it's not on that plan. Do we need to change the plan, or do we need to change what we're doing? And also a brutal reality to us is we're in our 40s with families making a change in direction. So there's kind of a self-preservation piece around this, that we're taking a leap of faith. Does it stack up? And what would we need to do? Because what we need to do to make this sustainable, what we need to do to make this the income that our families need to run off, etc.
Yeah.
So it was, there's a very much is this a viable self-preservation thing? And then just generally, that's the mindset I'm always in, that I have to be working to some sort of plan. There has to be a plan in place. And also just for business plan purposes, that we can measure as a business every year, are we on target? Are we above it, below it? If not, why not? And then how do we just apply?
Yeah, brilliant. No, music to my ears. Yeah, that's so important to have that in that level of structure, to bring that in right from the very beginning. Yeah, credit where credit's due in terms for that. So, you've talked about the big change that happened. You've talked about your business model of outsourcing. So I'm interested in outsourcing. Ben, how have you gone about finding the providers that are right for you? Normally we would employ people and we talk about values and how we employ people, but you're outsourcing. So how do you find the right partners? What have you gone around doing that?
Oh, so this is really interesting. I find this, again, I keep saying I find it interesting. Other people might not, but I do. So one of the ways is, so we are part, like I mentioned before, we're part of a network called Valid Path. So they are a network of independent financial advisors. They provide a lot of the systems we use, and they fundamentally provide the kind of compliance process for us. However, they've been very useful for us around, we have this conversation with them, like we have kind of strategic calls with them around kind of where we're going to get advice and getting them to point us in the right direction. And we said we were looking for this, if I talk specifically around paraplanning. So paraplanners are the guys that will do a lot of build the files, do a lot of the research, do a lot of the kind of clever technical stuff in the background that builds up what we do for our clients. And we wanted to outsource that. And they said, well, you can outsource it. And they started with providing us a list. So we said, well, actually, other advisors we know in our network use these guys. So we took that list, and then interviewed is too strong a word, but we then had meetings with them all to kind of talk to them around their approach and what they would do, and kind of the costing, of course. And then we had to pick it. We just had to pick from there. And the reason I say it's interesting is with the power planner we use now, who we're really pleased with, she's brilliant. She was, I don't want to, it's a compliment, but it might sound a bit mean. And the kind of initial calls with them, all this kind of interview, she was not a very, let's call it salesy person, so she didn't come across powerfully in that manner. Whereas we would sit down with other companies that would have a business development manager with you that was very slick and follow it all up properly. And I'd give Rob a lot of credit for this, that we went with the lady we use, who wasn't as slick, but she's excellent. She's technically very good. And the reason she's doing that power planning role is, and she says to us, I don't like doing the customer facing stuff. That's not my skill set. My skill set is the stuff you need me to do in the background. And I'm very happy doing that. So to answer your question, really, it's difficult, isn't it? You try and get as many options as possible. You try and get as many referrals or positive reviews as possible. Then you speak to them, and then you kind of you add your intuition, let's call it, kind of gut reaction or probably intuition. You add all that together, then you've got to make a call, haven't you? And you hope that it's right.
Yeah, and what's interesting, even though some of those people reflected who you are in terms of planning and organizing around the sales function, the marketing function, you still went for somebody that felt right to fit what you needed to have achieved. So, interesting, because I think what you're saying there is when we try to employ people, people that fit the company, you found people that fit what you needed, almost like fitting the company. Yeah, so it's almost like employing people, but on a different wavelength of thinking. So,
and I think that's just kind of reflecting on that. I think that's why our skill set's quite good, because that would have been Rob, who's the economist by trade. He's much more in that kind of, let's call it, that power planning mindset. So he would have recognised a lot more of the skills. Whereas you mentioned the mirroring, I'd be much more kind of engaged with the salesperson BDM around their approach, and I'd be much more, their approach is good, they're very clear, they followed up very slickly, I like these guys. Whereas Rob, in that kind of complementary skills between us, would be much more, actually, we need someone who's intelligent, competent, kind of do what we need them to do. So
brilliant.
So I definitely bow to his better judgment.
Well, that's a real compliment to three brothers that can work together as well. Well done.
I suppose so. Thanks. Yeah.
I'm sure there was lots of rivalry in the old days, and now you all work together. So let's move on a little bit. You mentioned self-preservation, because it's really important, because you're doing this in your 40s. You've got families and mortgages, etc. So cash is really important in any business. How do you guys keep on top of cash?
Yeah. So. The outsourcing model is very important to that. So we're kind of, for want of a better term, we're paying as we go. So it's per file, per transaction around that. So if we have a month where we're not bringing any clients on board, that cost is reduced. So the actual baseline costs for our firm is relatively low by any kind of company standards. We don't have a lot of capital demands. We use flexible office space. So one of the things that's very kind of complementary to us or if there were any benefits to come out of the pandemic, it was the use of flexible office space. Because in our world, it's people's personal finances, so they tend to want us to meet them at their house or in somewhere like a coffee shop if they want to meet us at first hand. Or if we're doing any work with kind of businesses around the workplace pension scheme, we go to their office. So what I mean is there's not a lot of times people say, I want to come to your office. So it's important to us that we don't have that kind of fixed cost of an office, because when we look at it, there'll be days at a time no one would be in it. So it's kind of keep the kind of cost manageable. We use flexible office space. We outsource as much as we can. So our actual base cost is relatively low. Yeah. So it's much more of a, and that is the kind of strategic plan to maintain that as we can kind of start to build up our business and make it more and more sustainable.
Yeah. Brilliant. Wow. Really good. Yeah. Controlling costs is a very important activity. So let's just think about, the industry, the financial advising industry. If I was to give you a magic wand, what drives you frustration in the industry that you would wave the magic wand and get rid of?
Might be careful here. Well, this is a weird one, and I don't know. It's some of the companies we deal with who manage the products are so poor with their service and so unclear around their products. It creates a lot of a need for advice. So a lot of people, if I take a pension, for example, will get a letter from their pension company and not understand a word it says. And they'll be like, these are senior, intelligent people. And they're like, I've got no clue what this means. I need to, even if I think I know what it is, I still need to sense check it with someone.
I'll put my hand up to that. I know that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And then and then from our world, we are trying to get the information out of those providers so we can help make sense of it to our clients. And when they could turn around and say, well, we have a 3-month SLA on providing information, well, this is somebody's money. It's like, anyway. So that's like, the magic wand about just making the information as readily available as possible and quick would just revolutionize our industry.
Brilliant. Yes. Yeah. And I think a number of industries have done that over time, and they've been forced to do that. So, the mobile phone industry went through that, the ability to move a mobile phone now, it's just normal, but 20 years ago or 15 years ago, it was almost impossible. So yeah. Some industries have gone through that, though they're a lot younger than the financial advice industry. So
yeah, true.
And the banking industry has gone through the same. You have to be able to switch very quickly with switching guarantees. But I can tell you, the banks were forced down that road by the government and the capabilities. Because I have a background in servicing banks, and we went through that pain with them. So, but anyway, that's not about me; it's about you. So, the 5-year question. So, we're going to meet in 5 years' time and have a cup of coffee and talk about the last 5 years. What's happened for you, both professionally and personally, to the next 5 years to be successful.
Oh, okay. So really, our plan was around 7-8 years. So we think from starting out to 7-8 years, we can make it the kind of size of business that we want it to be. And it's more of the mode we're in at the moment is kind of growing. So it's bringing more and more clients on board. So we get our business to a sustainable level where we're not necessarily looking for more and more clients. It's about just managing the ones we have. So we still have a lot of kind of capacity around that. So in 5 years, it'd be quite an interesting place, because we'll have a much better idea of how close we are to that kind of 7-8 year goal of getting the kind of numbers we think is manageable and sustainable. So I really hope we are on track for that. I really hope we continue to grow as a business, kind of personally and professionally. I don't see much change kind of professionally, other than not from a kind of qualifications route, but more of that I've got a business I'm proud of and got clients that are happy with what we're doing and that we're still available to help people. It sounds very, I don't know, it sounds I don't mean to sound as twee as it might do, but what I genuinely like about this job is you are helping people, and you're tangibly helping people with their finances or retirement that they don't understand. And so you're coming away with something which I've genuinely helped them, genuinely made their life easier. Whereas, I don't know, when you're managing large energy contracts, it feels like when you come away from that, it doesn't feel like you've particularly made anyone's life better. You've made some companies operate a lot better, but not helping individuals, which I really like. So that's what hopefully we can continue to do that and have a good track record of people kind of trusting and believing in us.
Well, Ben, fantastic conversation today. Thank you so much. You know, in terms of three brothers coming together to build a business, taking that leap of faith and making that happen. You know, you had the opportunity due to your own working life that came along. But, you know, a real dive into estate planning and thinking about retirement and thinking about those stages in life, you know, when you need to start a pension, think about retirement, and then what comes next in inheritance and thinking longer term for the future of your families. But the real passion that the three of you have brought to your business and thinking about how do we start it properly? You know, that real planning focus that you've done, that real passion to using technology to make things different, but the business model of outsourcing and finding the right people to outsource to help grow, develop your business. Yeah, a real discussion around change and change management when it happens in a business, and realizing that you know, a lot more planning and thinking about that in the future. But yeah, that happens to all of us, which becomes very, very important. So, you know, I've really picked up on that key thing about starting a business isn't just a dream, isn't just I'll go to market with my product. If you do it properly, if you put that elements in place, if you bring all your skill sets together that the three of you have done, you build something that is now your business. You know, the confidence in it, the growth in it, the delivery in it, the ability to overcome the problems comes because of that really great foundation that you put in place first. So thank you so much for that. And, you know, I wish you all the luck in the development, but I don't think it'll be a luck because, you know, luck is more about what you do, and you've got those repeating processes, those activities in place. In the next 7 to 8 years, you'll easily hit your targets and your thinking, because I can really see that within what you've done to date. So if I may, we finish with a quick fire round. So here are a few questions for you. If you go back to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, wow. I think just be kind to yourself. I think just believe that things will be okay, and just be a lot easier on yourself than you can be. If you're probably doing a lot better than you think you are.
Interesting. Yes. Books. Yeah, we all learn for books. Any books you recommend?
This will be a problem, because my wife and I joke about this. My wife loves reading books. We'll read loads of books a week, where I barely read anything. So, if I mention any books, she's going to mercilessly rip me for talking about it. It's always, for me, it always tends to be autobiographies. So, and I can't remember the last one I read. That's really poor, isn't it?
Podcasts. Podcasts. Which ones do you find good for you?
Hours of them. So I like actually the one I listen to a lot at the moment is called the Socially Distant Sports Bar. It's kind of a couple of comedians and a journalist from Wales. It was started up in the pandemic around just kind of getting everyone together. It's very, very loosely based around sport. It's very funny, and I like listening to that every week. Others I like the Frank Skinner one, his Absolute Radio Show. And then I start to listen to, there's a lot of kind of financial ones. So actually Hargreaves Lansdown's is quite a good one to listen to. I listen to as many of the kind of market update ones as I can. So yeah, if I'm not, my alternative to reading is I listen to podcasts all the time. If I'm in the car, you can just walk around the house, I'll put my headphones on and listen to a podcast.
Yeah, I guess that when you made your comment about books, because you've got a lot of knowledge, so they must come from somewhere, and I can definitely see that that's in terms of the way you've extended your knowledge. Yeah, definitely, yes. And the best time to listen to podcasts, in the car. Interesting that, yes. Onto your mobile phone. Any apps that make a difference for you?
Oh. The main apps, I'm on WhatsApp a lot. I'm a big WhatsApp fan, so that's how I keep in contact with people. What apps do I go on? I'm not a huge social media guy, so maybe occasionally on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter. I'm never going to have been, so I'm going to keep that to a minimum. A little bit of Spotify. So that's mainly really. If I'm ever on my phone, it's on a WhatsApp, just keeping in contact with people.
Okay, brilliant. My favourite question of all, who's had the most influence on you as a business leader?
Oh, wow. That is an incredibly difficult question. Well, I'd probably say there's so many people. I feel difficult like picking someone out, but I think one of the ones that kind of springs to mind was a guy I used to work for called Steve Mortimer back in kind of British Energy days, and he was my boss when I was kind of like let's say late 20s. So when you're in that kind of balance of you're so keen, but you're trying to get your career up and running, and you're kind of raw to it. And he was a very kind of strong character, very kind of had a lot of skills that I wanted to kind of take on board, and he kind of was very good for me. So I think he was he was a big kind of influence on my kind of career, definitely. And then I think there's lots of others. Also, like going off tangent. So I know this is quick fire, but it was I've played a lot of rugby, and I've coached rugby teams. I'm a coach now for a men's team in Cheltenham, and I genuinely think the skills are very, very transferable both ways, from running business teams to running sports teams, and those skills pass over. So a lot of the kind of top coaches I've worked with, kind of Paul Morris, kind of these guys, they've really helped me in that respect, and that's around being a leader, and that could be a leader in business, can be a leader in sport. So yeah, there's lots of people there too.
Brilliant. Yes, I would totally agree. And at our last Scale Up Club, we were talking about that very thing, that transferable knowledge between being a coach in a sport and being a coach and a business leader. So brilliant. Finally, Ben, how can people get hold of you?
Yeah, so in numerous ways. So feel free to go via our website, which is www.parkerfa.com, or you can just email me directly. That's fine, at ben@parkerfa.com, or you'll find me on LinkedIn or our Facebook page. So any kind of searches around Parker Financial Advice, you'll be able to get hold of me. I'll be very happy to speak to anybody.
Brilliant. Well, Ben, thank you so much for this amazing conversation today.
Oh, thank you, Grant. I've really enjoyed it, actually. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.